Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guradmeti Murti Vedha Vibhakine Vyoma Vadyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtiya Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tama Gocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyaham. From the first Guru, pure existence consciousness, down to Shankaracharya in the middle, and my teacher at the end, I prostrate to the Guru-disciple tradition. Ishvara, my Guru, is beyond form and duality, beyond space and the body. I bow to Ishvara in the form of Dakshinamurti, that is the one who brings self-knowledge. The import of all Vedanta texts is beyond the known and the unknown. It is limitless bliss and unborn light. I worship that reality as my Guru. Okay. Hari Om. Okay, since last fortnight, we will, just for the sake of quick revision, we stop at the subject of Samadhi. And Samadhi means absorption. And the question is, what kind of absorption? So the kind will depend on the qualification and the purity of the mind that is absorbed. So if we have done a lot of work, then there will be a certain depth of absorption. Whereas not so much work, then absorption will be superficial. This means it will stop at superficial worldly experiences, maybe yesterday, maybe what I have to make for dinner, or where do I need to go after this, and so on. So the Samadhi in Vedanta is, the purpose is for purification of the mind, which is called Chitta Shuddhi. So last week we spoke about Savikalpa. So when we say Vikalpa, that means modification. So a thought modification. And Sa means with. So there is a with a thought spike or a thought modification. And then we're going to use the word Nirvikalpa, that is without modification. So this means that the process goes from Savikalpa to Nirvikalpa. So we're going to ask why. Why should this happen? Why should we go from Savikalpa to Nirvikalpa? And before explaining that, we just want to answer quickly what happens in Savikalpa. After the stage of dhyanam, that is meditation, the mind, owing to its momentum of focusing exclusively on a single topic, call it Atman, that is the awareness, then owing to that single pointed focus, suppose that's the mind, and whenever a thought of a person comes, then the person recognizes that thought and immediately shifts the focus back onto the object of meditation. So this kind of situation is going to keep happening for, let's say, 30 minutes or maybe 1 hour. And most of us will quit at 30-minute mark. So in other words, we will never even get to the stage of Savikalpa, where there is a subject-object, where there is only the subject and the object present. So this is why the purpose of meditation is to extend it so that the mind can have the time to come to a critical moment where it's exclusively only focused on the object of its meditation. So the purpose of all yoga that we see and all the asanas, it's not just to have a fancy body, of course, but it's actually mostly, if not only, for the purpose of extending the meditation and sitting in a posture. So savikalpa is when there is exclusively, owing to the constant redirection of thoughts back onto the object, there is now only the subject and the object, and the object is lack of thoughts. In other words, no thoughts is another object. And why do I say that? Because no thoughts is another object of knowledge known to the subject. So whether there is a thought or not, we'll call this a thought, or no thought, it is still an object of knowledge known to the subject. Now, after some time of continuing to focus on the object of knowledge, which is nothing, then what happens is this also disappears. So now all there is the subject itself, and this is called nirvikalpa samadhi. Okay, is that clear? So after some time of focusing, then this will disappear, and then the person will recognize there is no difference between this and that. And then thus all that remains is the knower, the knowing, and the known as one. And this is what we call nirvikalpa. Now you're going to say, how does this tie with Vedanta? Because it sounds like a yoga, Purvamimamsa school. And that's why we're going to answer a few clarifications so we don't get confused when we hear this word, nirvikalpa samadhi. Okay. Before that, we also spoke and said that nirvikalpa is, for example, when you've been riding a bicycle, right? And at the beginning, there was a subject riding the object, right? And then after some time, then you're just on an autopilot. So now there is just enjoyment, there is just experience, there is just this. And that's what we call as nirvikalpa. It is autopilot. Okay, so that's what we said in the last fortnight. And we also compared this nirvikalpa. We asked, what's the mind like in nirvikalpa samadhi? And we said it is like a flame in a breezeless place. That means there's no breeze, and then just a flame that remains completely still. So this is a process that we call nirvikalpa. However, this nirvikalpa, this word, nirvikalpa, okay, this has two definitions. One is yoga definition, and the other one is Advaita Vedanta definition. So we're going to talk about both. Okay, what's next? So what we just discussed was verse 55. Now let's go into verse 56. And to continue on to verse 56, a doubt is going to be raised, and the doubt is, if the mind is totally absorbed in samadhi, okay, that means the mind is totally absorbed in the samadhi experience, then how does one know that it is samadhi and not just deep sleep? Okay, so the validity of this question is to discover that even samadhi is another state known to the subject. Okay, let's verse 56. In samadhi, although the thoughts going to the self are not known, however, they are remembered by one who has come out of samadhi by his or her memory. So, when the person comes out of samadhi, that means in this context, the meditation specifically, we're not talking about sahaja, we're not talking about established in the self, in the normal waking world. We're talking about out of the meditation process. Then one's going to say, how do you know you've been in samadhi? right? Because there was no mind. Who's there to know about the process? And then it says, the one who was the subject, the owning to the subject's presence, the subject remembers the samadhi later on in the waking state because of his or her memory. So let's read. In the samadhi state, there is no vritti jnanam. Vritti jnanam, as I said, is knowledge of something. Okay. But when I say I know myself, the I is not the object of my knowledge, because I am the knower and I am also the known. This is subjective knowledge. So in other words, when you say right now, we'll do a little practice, I know myself. Do you need to know that to know yourself? Do you need to say that to know yourself?
No.
Huh?
No.
No. So when you say I know myself, that I, which the know myself comes after, that doesn't need to have the statement I know myself, because it is already self-evident even before the statement came. So in that case, the I was already there prior to making the statement, was already the knower, continues to be the knower while that statement is being made, and continues to be the knower of myself even after the statement has ended. So that I that we're talking about is not the object of knowledge, which we call vritti jnanam. Therefore, I is not an object of knowledge, because the object of knowledge has to be validated by something prior to its presence. Thus, in nirvikalpa samadhi, thoughts are totally absent, because all thoughts are turned towards the pure self. Okay, so there's no thoughts, not even the thought of no thoughts, not even the thought of nothing. This is then inferred when the individual discards the state of samadhi, that is, they come out of the meditation, and enters the waking state. He calls his experience, or she calls her experience, when his or her thoughts were totally submerged in the pure self. That is, when the object of knowledge was Paramatma and nothing else. So there is a memory. And also one more point is, it says here, when her thoughts were totally submerged in the self, he or she recalls the experience, just like we recall deep sleep, which means what? That I was there during Nirvikalpa Samadhi and I'm still there after the Nirvikalpa is over. When the object only was Paramatma and nothing else. In other words, you see how we're speaking? When the object of knowledge was Paramatma and nothing. You see how we're speaking from the reader's point of view? But from their point of view, are they going to be speaking like this? No. So when we say when the object of knowledge was Paramatma and nothing else, it sounds like when there was an object of knowledge of Atman for the I or for the Atman, then that was known. But there was only Atman from their standpoint. From our standpoint, we speak like this. Is that clear? Okay. Now, doubt arises. Another subtle question is raised. In Nirvikalpa Samadhi, there is no effort, because there is no one to make the effort. Such being the case, how are thoughts continuously pointed towards the Atma Tattva? In other words, how is the state of Nirvikalpa Samadhi be sustained over a length of time? So this is a doubt now. If there is no I, if there is no door in Nirvikalpa Samadhi to sustain the length of Nirvikalpa Samadhi in meditation, then who is sustaining that state? So that now the doubt will now negate that it would say there has to be someone other than the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. There has to be a person who is going from a distance, going, okay, I want to sustain this for 1 hour. And this person will imply to be the aham kara. So we have to discard that possibility. Okay. So Nirvikalpa Samadhi is sustained by Savikalpa momentum and past impressions. So, what sustains your day? Like, what makes you go to sleep when you go to sleep? What happened? After we go, I want to go to sleep. What makes us keep awake for several hours and then suddenly we want to go to sleep? What made us go to sleep? I know you're going to say tired, but there's another reason for that.
Resting of the senses.
Huh?
Resting of the senses. The senses need to be rested. That's out of the way.
Yeah, that's the physical layer of personality. What about the causal?
Thoughts sustain.
Huh?
Thoughts.
Thoughts, what about?
Sustain. Stops.
Yeah, but okay, think about prarabdha. What happened? Prarabdha, exhaustion for the day. So, what makes us be awake for so many hours and then we want to go to sleep? Once the prarabdha karma starts in the morning, then what keeps us awake is that prarabdha karma, and then when it's exhausted, then we go, I want to sleep. Some people, unfortunately, will take coffee or they will take some liquor or something and they will sever that process and they will artificially continue existing for the day. Whereas the mechanism thus is prarabdha karma. In the same way, there is a same mechanism that sustains the Nirvikalpa Samadhi. And that mechanism is called momentum. So, what happens if there is a fan spinning and then we turn it off? And then I say the fan is off. And you say, no, I say the fan is on. And you say the fan is off. Well, who's right? Right. But even if the fan is off, why is the fan on? Right?
It's trying to stop.
Right, because there is a momentum. So in the same way, the momentum is the mechanism which is able to sustain the duration of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Now remember how I started the session? I said the word dhyanam. In meditation, once the person keeps refocusing their thoughts back onto the object of meditation, then over some time, this doesn't come anymore. The world doesn't come. So all there is this subject-object. Now, owing to that constant momentum of excluding any thoughts, that momentum then transfers into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, and that momentum is what causes Nirvikalpa Samadhi to last 1 hour. Just like if the electricity has been doing its work, and even if you turn off the electricity, now electricity is no longer required, the momentum will spin the fan. Okay, let's read the verse. The constant flow of thoughts during Nirvikalpa Samadhi towards Paramatma, that is Brahman, is possible firstly due to the earlier efforts put during Savikalpa Samadhi, and secondly due to the deep impressions gathered as a result of earlier good deeds, punya karma, and the practice put together. In other words, another question. What makes Kelsey be awake for, suppose, 5 hours and the rest of us fall asleep at a 3-hour mark? Suppose now we ask Kelsey, yeah, what's your secret to staying awake so long and so healthy? Then Kelsey replies, well, I do a lot of yoga practice, I do a lot of exercise, I take care of myself. In other words, Kelsey has a lot of punyam in her repertoire. And only to that past punyam, she's thus able to extend her stay a lot longer than some of us who have not gained the same practice that Kelsey has put into it. So in the same way, the nirvikalpa is sustained by the momentum and the deep impressions, deep work, the past work that we have put into our sadhana. Now a question is going to come up. What's the point of extending nirvikalpa samadhi? Keep that in mind. Okay, reading. We have said that in samadhi, the sense of I is not present. If that is the case, then who is that experiences the samadhi? Where is that person? Because, you know, when we say samadhi, it's beyond blissful. It's incredible. Well, if there was no person there, then how do you know it was incredible? How is a samadhi state continuing without the I? That is, without the doer and the enjoyer. Such a thing is not scientifically possible. This is still the doubt. And another example we'll use is, suppose that you go to someone's house and you see a very beautiful garden, like very pruned and neat and fantastic. And what do you instantly infer?
It's been looked after.
Yeah, there's someone took care of this, right? They may not be here, but there is someone, there's an invisible person who, by their presence, has taken care of the garden. So in the same way, the nirvikalpa is assumed to be like that. Well, even though nirvikalpa is beautifully, like a beautiful garden, then obviously it implies there is a person who may not be visible, but there is some person there. Now, to answer this objection, this is what we say. The constant flow of thoughts towards Paramatma in Nirvikalpa Samadhi is possible because of two reasons. First, in the earlier stages of sadhana, he or she has been constantly putting forward efforts, like Kelsey, rejecting all other thoughts, other non-helpful thoughts. This is called Savikalpa Samadhi. Remember? Rejecting all other non-conducive thoughts. So there's an effort. There is a person who is putting the effort. No. I don't want to think about my husband now. No, I don't want to think about my work now. I don't want to think about hunger. I don't want to think about what I need to do. Just constantly always moving, focusing thoughts back onto the object of meditation, which is no thoughts. Okay, so this is called Savikalpa Samadhi, where Sakshi Bhava, that means the witness, the uninvolved witness, is awakened and no importance is given to the presence of the thoughts or to their content or theme. Okay. No importance is given to the presence of the thoughts. Does that sound like a practice? What do we usually do? A thought arises regarding life, and then what do?
Follow it, think it through.
Yeah, we follow up. What does this mean? What's wrong with me? Where does this come from? I thought I addressed this before. I need to go and have more modality work. I need to investigate this. I'm not pure. The whole conversation starts with one single thought. And here it says, the Sakshi Bhava, which you are, which we are, which the truth is, is awakened and no importance is given to the presence of the thoughts. Now, how do you not give any importance to the presence of the thoughts? How do we do that? Does that mean, first of all, deny the thought? Does that mean to deny the thought? Like, no. I need to say sorry to someone. Do I deny that?
Just allow it, but let it go.
Yeah, but how do you allow something? That's true, but how do I allow something?
Why not associating it with yourself?
Yeah, good. Yeah. What else can we do not to let it become the object of our day?
Just observe it with no judgment.
Yeah. But how do you observe it without judgment? I know that's easy to say, but what has to happen to
accept it?
But how? How do we accept something?
So there's not my thoughts, or not the mind-body, ultimately some kind of knowledge that you apply.
Good. That's much closer.
Yeah.
That's much closer.
This is not my thought.
What about impressions? I know they're impressions, but how do I take something that is generally bugging me, right? And without denying it, I just say, it is not as important as I think it is. I know there's a feeling in the chest or in the heart, or it's genuinely annoying me, but how do I not give it any importance?
What about disowning it?
Discern?
Kind of like what Gareth's saying, this isn't mine.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in reality, if you do that, is the feeling going to go away?
Not really.
Not really.
Struggle with it.
In fact, it never goes away completely, right? So how does then one not give any importance to the thought? The answer is there is actually no one simple way. Because if I give you one way, you're going to say it doesn't work for you. So what we have to do is just apply a way that works for you, but without denying it. So we're not going to answer like what way to answer. If you want a technique, then karma yoga is the way. And just see it as a prasada buddhi, for example. This is Ishwara's gift for me to grow, to expand. And I choose to look at this in a different way. What can I learn from this? What can I extract? How can I be a better person? So next time I actually be able to give and not get hurt. What out of this have I not been looking at that if I do look at, then I would get some useful data that I can work with.
Well, could it be something as simple as you don't let it go necessarily, but you disrupt it by thinking about something else, which is less compulsive. So, I mean, what happens with meditation with me is I realise I've been abiding by all these unwritten rules. Don't move, don't disrupt it and get up, or don't move until the time's up. Yeah. But meditation, you can abandon those rules and go, well, I can't get this thought out of my head, and I'll struggle with it. I just look at my phone and go, oh, there's something, and then I move on to the next thing. So, I mean, I don't know if that's intuitive or not, but it seems like meditation has these unwritten rules that you must abide by if that's what meditation is, but I'm not sure that's true.
Yeah, that's a good point, Gareth. See, in meditation, we often think that now I'm supposed to stay in this meditation, right? But that's not the case, because if you're fighting with your thoughts in meditation, your meditation is going to be fighting with thoughts. It's going to be giving them more reality. So then just stop the meditation, go do vacuum the house or something. I do something different. So this is what I mean. There is no particular technique or written rule. We have to be sensitive and work with what is the next logical step that I, according to my experience, think at least would alleviate this condition. It could be saying sorry. It could be actually talking to a friend. It could be sitting down next to a river creek. It could be listening to some gentle music. It could be looking some video that is inspiring. It could be, it doesn't really matter. But the point is there has to be a practice that is consistent and also not just ongoing, but you have to look for different ways, because sometimes we get stuck in a single way of how to deal with our confrontations, and then we can't move on. So what it's really saying is don't give importance to the presence of thoughts. In other words, address them, but recognize they're not that important. And then how that is done, that is up to you. Now, by the strength of this abhyasa, this practice, the seeker develops the skill of tuning their mind in the desired direction effortlessly and maintain it in the state of single pointedness. So I'm going to ask the question again. How does one deal when the inevitable confrontation or emotion or uncomfort arises? Answer: by abhyasa, number one, practice, which means I've done it before, I have done something different, and as a result of that, I've trained through time my mind to focus single-pointedly to what really matters. What is true right now? I am. That is the Sakshi Bhava, the witness. Okay, and the second reason why nirvikalpa is possible to be known, to be sustained, is when whatever sadhana one has done in the previous life has a cumulative or culminative effect. If not in this embodiment, the journey will continue towards its completion. This is also from chapter 6, Gita. So this explains why some people are lucky, at least the way that we call them. You know, they're so lucky. How is it that their life is so simple and they're able to perform very incredible feats, like successful or meditation? How is that possible? The answer is, it's not just this life. There is also a culminative effect from previous life. So this practically means there's no reason to get compare us with someone else, because they have done the work, so therefore they rightfully deserve their success that have gotten. For example, the Gita, people who are very good at chanting it, they would just sit down with the kids, you know, they would just start chanting the Gita automatically. And then even today, I'll look at them and go, well, we're such a long way to go, right? They're like so ahead of me. I don't know anything compared to these small children. So this is what I mean. I grew up in a different culture and, you know, from a different place. And to now compare myself with these smaller children, it's actually not fair, because I'm the one who, you know, was playing with material things in the last life. So I can't get angry, you know. So that we kind of look at it objectively. So this means if this is applied, then the life should not be so tight with oneself. One shouldn't have so many expectations.
Andre, are you inferring that you played with material things in the last life?
Yeah, of course. Just an example. I have to say something. Because the fact that the person is reborn, obviously they were playing with material things last life.
Yeah. So would those children have been playing with material things as well?
Yeah, but except they were playing more with also with the Gita material things.
Okay, yeah.
Everything's material.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. However, it depends on what kind of specifically of toys one is playing with. Okay, thus Nirvikalpa Samadhi is not an instant miracle, but the result of continuous effort over several births. The momentum building up from one janma to another till it reaches its fulfillment. So now I can answer with speaking as Nirvikalpa to mean yoga. Right, that's what we've been imagining probably. Nirvikalpa Samadhi in Vedanta also means absorbed in the self as the self. There is no difference, but there is no person that is absorbed, there is just self. So Nirvikalpa Samadhi just means that only to the prior nididhyasanam, the person has trained their mind to constantly turn its pointed, single-pointed focus on the self, which is always reflecting on the mind. In other words, Nirvikalpa Samadhi is liberation. Another name for it. You are Nirvikalpa Samadhi. What is Nirvikalpa? What does the word Nirvikalpa mean? Without modifications. What is Atman? Without modifications. In other words, we're talking about ourselves. So in other words, if we go back and we say, how does one attain Nirvikalpa Samadhi according to Vedanta? We had single pointedness through practice, and abhyasa. So that's basically two components. There's actually no other way. There's no magical formula for this. Now, what's next? Vidyaranya now cites the Bhagavad Gita to support the above statement. So this is verse 58 now. Attainment of Nirvikalpa Samadhi is like a breezeless flame. So now we're going to speak about the actuality of a self-realized person. By the example of a flame in a breezeless spot, so imagine a flame in a breezeless spot, very still, and by various other ways, Sri Krishna conveys the same idea to Arjuna by giving many clear examples. Okay, let's see. So when the seeker is in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, the yogi fixes his or her mind without any vikalpa on the goal of Brahma Tattva. In other words, the yogi exclusively focuses the mind on the self. Brahma Tattva, that means the reality of the truth. The state of his mind is like a lamp kept in a secluded place where there is no breeze. So, how does one gain a condition or enjoys the condition of their mind being like a lamp with a flame kept in a secluded place? Imagine your mind, right? And in your mind, like the brain is like the outer shell, and the mind is like the flame. Now, how do we come to a place of that mind being like a flame, completely still, in a breezeless place?
No disturbances.
Huh?
No disturbances.
Previous verse.
Oh, okay.
State of single pointedness, abhyasa. That's why this is the next verse. So again, this is the order. Dharana, remember dharana is the process of concentration. And then through concentration, there is meditation. And this is constantly excluding thoughts pertaining to the world, putting them back onto the object of meditation. And then, as a result of one's practice, the Atma, the self, which is awareness, is reflected on the rippleless buddhi, and owing to the rippleless buddhi, like a sun shining onto the bucket of water, it perfectly reflects the original light without any contaminations. And the nature of Atma is Ananda. That's why a person will say that in meditation, after coming out of Samadhi, they'll say that it's just, there's no experience to describe the beauty of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. There's no greater Ananda, greater limitlessness. Okay. After having studied sufficiently in-depth Shravanam, that is listening, followed by reflection and contemplation, and there is doubtless knowledge, the seeker starts the abhyasa of Nirvikalpa Samadhi. So in other words, real life language. How do you learn anything? Step 1. Listen. Step 2.
Think about it.
I don't understand. I need some question. I've got some questions. I need to clarify my doubts. Normal. And then step 3. How do I master? How do you master what you learned? You just continue for years and years. That's what makes a master and a non-master. Now, here it says one more step. Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Now, we have to put a little pause here. This is not necessary in Vedanta. It is only pertaining and mainly pertaining to the yoga world. Because the only way you can say this statement is if you include Nirvikalpa Samadhi to include a sadhana belonging to where? Nididhyasanam. Okay? Because in Vedanta, we don't go, listen to Nididhyasana and go into meditation and now try to attain some state. Why is that? Because you'll be contradicting the essence of Vedanta. Why would I want to attain something if I cannot be anything other than what I already am right now? So the person doesn't need to go somewhere to attain something. That's why I said in brackets, that is only true if Nirvikalpa is inclusive in Nididhyasana. That is contemplation and mastery of the topic through involvement and reading the scriptures. So, now we're going to compare two definitions of yoga and Vedanta pertaining to Nirvikalpa Samadhi. In the yoga world, in this samadhi state, the mind is weaned away from unnecessary engagements about worldly affairs. Does that sound like meditation? Yeah? That's why we say it's a yoga world. It's meditator. Whereas in Vedanta, he or she is able to be quiet and serene effortlessly. To face quietness, one requires abhyasa, or strength. In other words, the whole point of Vedanta practice is not to try to surround yourself with birds and ocean and quiet environment and try to adjust the environment to suit a quiet lifestyle. The whole point is not to be agitated despite the noise, despite the agitations of the world. In that way, when this is practiced for a length of time, this samadhi, this single pointed focus, the seeker spends most of the time by himself. Does it sound like meditation? That's what we say. It's referring to yoga. In Vedanta, you don't spend most of your time by yourself unless you're a sannyasi, but even then, in today's world, you're probably going to be engaged with a lot of people. And then listening to the silence. The knowingness is withdrawn into beingness. Okay, the knowingness, the knowledge, becomes the actuality. That's what it means. That means once you've practiced, then it's no longer knowledge. You don't anymore go, I know this. I know how to drive a car. You're just a car driver, right? You just drive a car. There's no question of I know this. Okay, and this knowingness, back into the yoga world, refers to the last trace of ahankara. So what happens before, so let's just talk about savikalpa and nirvikalpa. So what happens right before this disappears? What kept the object of knowledge alive? The ahamkara. That means the sense of I, the doer. The doer who is focusing on the object of knowledge. So what happens right when this dissolves? And the answer is, so the knowingness refers to the knowledge of there is nothing. And then eventually it dissolves. So when that dissolves, the last trace of this ahamkara disappears. And thus we call that nirvikalpa samadhi. This is why the longer the person meditates, at the beginning there will be a strong sense of I, like a strong I am doing this. I'm here and I'm trying to not be annoyed. I'm not trying to be distracted. I'm holding on to the state. Now the longer the person spends time meditating, the weaker, the more subtle and unnecessary that becomes because of the momentum. So eventually it becomes so thin that it completely just is unnecessary. And that disappearance of that last trace of ahamkara is called then nirvikalpa samadhi. But it also refers to Yoga also refers to Vedanta, because what is Vedanta about? No longer giving reality to the I, who is in control, who is who is doing and enjoying this world. So there is no difference when we talk about nirvikalpa for the yoga, or nirvikalpa as in self-realization. Because self-realization is what? What is liberation? Dropping the idea that I have to do something to be liberated. Dropping the idea that I have to do something to be happy. So when the idea is dropped, then that is as good as saying the last traces of ahamkara are thinned out and it is no longer necessary. Thus, what happens then? The person is responding naturally, spontaneously to the environment. No longer trying to calculate, what do I need to do? What am I going to do after this? How am I going to answer this question? Am I doing a good job? What if I could do better? What if I do? Let me redo this again. Let me think about how this could have gone better. Right? None of that is necessary, because who's doing that? The ahamkara, the one who is tactful, the one who is doing, and the one who is trying to enjoy or suffer as a result of their actions. So what happens is spontaneity is the reality of the self-realized person. You know, like children, how spontaneous they are? You observe that? Yeah, like that. Basically just going back to a child state. It's very simple. End of the day. But as a child with knowledge, not the child who is responding to the fancies and the whims of the environment. Like you put a cake, they go, give me one. Right? Not like that.
So just to be clear, so nirvikalpa samadhi means that if you're in that state, the ahamkara disappears, or recedes, or comes back.
It recedes in savikalpa, and then when it completely disappears, it's called nirvikalpa. This is yoga world now.
Oh, yoga world. So
now,
is this a constant state though?
Now, in the yoga world, it's not, because you just said it. It's a state. Because when a person comes, just like from deep sleep, it's no longer true.
Okay.
But in the Vedanta point of view, nirvikalpa just says, I don't need to be in control anymore. There's no point doing anything, because who's the doer? The doer is also itself the truth, pervaded by the one saying consciousness. So the person tries to give up doing anything because there's just no point.
So that's synonymous with moksha. I mean, there are so many words for the same, apparently the same thing. But I mean, I'm trying to cluster these different words together and what the purpose of the distinction is. Yeah,
let's not use the word moksha yet. Let's just keep this to the journey of getting there. Yeah. Okay. He tries to maintain this nirvikalpa samadhi as long as possible. Whether it's a yoga, purva, uttara, mimamsa, it doesn't matter. He or she tries to maintain this. How? Abhyasa and one single pointedness. The samadhi being also a state of the mind, it supports both the quietness and the concept of time. In other words, quietness, you see what it just gave away? Quietness is what? Meditation. Is there a concept of time in meditation? No. So thus it is referring to both yoga, quietness, and concept of time, a self-realized person, a liberated person. This nirvikalpa samadhi is the very essential stage in spiritual evolution. In other words, you can also interpret this as what? Nirvikalpa, what I say nirvikalpa is the self, Atman, awareness, consciousness. The substratum supports both the presence and the knowledge of quietness, the presence and the knowledge of concept of time. In other words, it is a substratum in whose presence both the lack of knowledge, the lack of time, and time itself is validated. None other than by whom? Yourself. Sakshi Bhava. Is that clear? Okay. What's next? when the samadhi abhyasa is continued for a long time, what are the results and benefits according to Yoga Shastra? This is stated in the next shloka. So now we're going to talk about what is the actual life transformation. And the life transformation will be pertaining to Dharma. Dharma just means I'm following the rules and I'm applying the rules as prescribed in real life. In other words, to say, for example, thou shalt not steal, that's a mandate, and then to go, that sounds really good. But then the person goes and steals the neighbor's rose, you know, because it's like, I need a rose for my little glass here. So that's stealing, right? Because that rose could matter to the neighbor. That could have taken that rose to their wife, and the wife would have been very happy, but I didn't take that into account. So it's small things like that that we are living by is called Dharma, that we're not allowing ourselves to fall into. So here, Dharma is the laws of the Vyavaharika existence. That means how to navigate in this transactional reality. So if you're asking, how do I live in this world according to how Ishvara would have me live, then Dharma will be the subject matter. So far we have covered Brahman, Jagat, Jeeva, Moksha, and Sadhana. That's why Gareth didn't say don't mention Moksha, because Moksha came last week, or I think two fortnights ago. Today we're talking about Sadhana. Or we have talked about Sadhana. Now Dharma is the sixth and the final topic of Vedanta. So Dharma shows us how we are to live in this world based on the knowledge and understanding that we have acquired, and how are we to put it into use with people, with shopkeepers, with bill collectors, with our tax agents, with our loved ones, with ordinary down-to-earth situations. How are we to apply this? In other words, now knowing that we are essentially the self, how are we to live in a transactional world that we consider to be the not-self? Is that a good question? What are the principles we need to know to enable us to live harmoniously without getting caught up again in the web of illusion? So this is where Dharma comes into place. This is why we say a person can gain this knowledge all they want, and they can keep coming back to classes, but if they ignore the principle of Dharma, it is not going to stick no matter how much they want it to. So in that case, Dharma comes into question. In other words, it doesn't allow for more karmic dirt to come through. Let's say there. We don't accumulate more karma and immorality and cheating, lying, and dishonesty. Because sometimes what happens is our patterns from childhood will start to creep through. And despite the knowledge, we'll still not speak kindly to a person, or maybe be sarcastic, or just not treat him how we would otherwise treat a holy person. So this is where we need to practice Dharma. Okay, and this Dharma that we speak of works in two ways in this world. One, accumulation of karma. Karma can only be accumulated in a human birth. And why do we accumulate karma? That is punyam and papam. Only one reason. Why?
Because we don't know who we are.
Yeah. Okay, now, if one doesn't know who they are, okay, that is a problem, but how is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Explain. Why would that get us into trouble?
You're identifying the body-mind and pursuing fruitless activity.
Yeah, okay, so the body, mind, intellect has a personality, has needs of their own. The body wants to feel sense pleasures. The mind wants to feel company, the company of others. The intellect wants to pursue interests of the world. The intellect also wants power. So if one subscribes to their three personalities of the body, mind, intellect, then the body, mind, intellect will be in the driver's seat and not the intellect, which is educated. So this is where education comes first. So without education, punya, papam, guaranteed. So first step, get educated. And 2, discharge of karma. So karma, which takes the form of punya and papa, merit and demerit, can only be discharged through enjoyment and suffering. So what this is saying is, suppose that a person does something illegal and they get caught, or they do something illegal and they don't want to get caught. So obviously they have to do some, they have to avoid things, they have to hide things, and because they know what? They're going to suffer. So you see how this already changes the person's dharma. Now what is dharma? Dharma is doing what is right according to the harmony of the total, according to the harmony of the environment. So if there is step 1, if I accumulate karma, papam, in a form of stealing, and then as a result to discharge that karma, I have to then suffer. But because the person doesn't want to suffer, what are they going to do? They're going to then do something illegal, something that is not harmonious with the environment. Thus, they will violate one of these 2 dharmic principles. Thus, they will not be continuing the harmony with the environment. And this, through time, is what destroys the person, because the person can only sustain this for so long until the environment becomes so strong that it goes topsy-turvy. The environment actually exposes the person, or something happens, right? They get exposed somehow. Okay, now pertaining to Dharma, how does this samadhi benefit us? Verse 59. Samskaras are burned, paving way to natural Dharma. Natural Dharma means harmony with the environment. As a result of this nirvikalpa, samadhi, millions of results of actions accumulated in the beginningless world over past and present births are destroyed. And pure Dharma, helpful to the realization of the truth, grows. So, what it's saying is, how is samadhi going to help me? Like, what's the logic of it actually causing the one to move closer towards assimilating knowledge and thus moksha? The logic of destruction, let's read. We mentioned earlier that one's total bundle of karma, that means everything they've done in their life, gets destroyed at the moment of attaining nirvikalpa samadhi. So, see, this cannot be referring to yoga, because when a person comes out of samadhi, right, in meditation, they're not going to suddenly be a saint. They're going to continue doing exactly what they did before. So what this is saying is they get nullified when the person disassociates from one onto whom this karma of punya and papa belongs to, which is the body, mind, intellect. In that way, it gets nullified. Did you get that? Mm-hmm. So the body still goes through the ups and downs. For example, suppose we a typical common example, there's an arrow, and I shoot an arrow, and I release the arrow, and it's aiming at a target. This is the foolish times. And it's going to hit someone because, I didn't like them. And then a person goes to Vedanta class and they get moksha. And everything's great now. Is the arrow going to change its course? No. No. So the arrow is still going to hit the target. And then now the fingerprints are going to get connected to this person, the Mr. or Mrs. Liberated, and then the police is going to say, you have committed a sin. We have to arrest you. Now, is the person, is the I sinful now? Is the I going to jail, or is the body, mind, intellect going to jail? But suppose the person didn't go to Vedanta, and the police also came to them. Who's going to jail? Is the I or the body, mind, intellect?
No.
The I. You see how it changes? So in other words, the body, mind, intellect has nothing to do with the I. In that case, here it says, all karma gets nullified for that I. But if the I still believes it's the body, mind, intellect, then the karma cannot get nullified, because the body, mind, intellect is going to keep going through its prarabdha karma till the day it dies. Okay. Now the logic of destruction will be explained in more detail. Okay, why is this karma destroyed? Number one, karma operates only in the phenomenal world, as I just said. It operates in this mithya world. Take the example of a dream. When we wake up from a dream, the whole dream is nullified. So this means no amount of goodness or badness that was done in the dream matters upon waking. Instantly washes away. It has no relevance in the waking state. A person who steals in the dream cannot be punished in the waking state for his crime. In the same way, karma functions only on the phenomenal plane, on this transactional reality, and not on the absolute plane. And what's the absolute plane referring to?
Absolute reality.
Yeah, the I am, the self. One who awakens to the absolute reality, that means knows that I am not this body, mind, intellect, as in Nirvikalpa Samadhi, which is Sakshi Bhava, the witness, becomes absolved of all karma. That's just what I use the example. In other words, the I is free of whatever happens to the body, mind, intellect. The body, mind, intellect will still go through pains, ups and downs, and different things in life according to what it has done in the past. We cannot stop that. So this is where we need to start to not get offended or confronted by so-called bad luck. Right? So suppose you're going to attending regularly and you're paying attention, and then you're like, yeah, but my life is still quite normal. You know, if I look at it in the standards of other people, it's not special, it's not exclusive, it's not exquisite, it's not, I can't consider it lucky, it's quite normal. So why is that? Because you're just another person from the body, mind, intellect level. That's the whole point. So this means we need to start accepting if our life is ordinary. We need to start accepting and not taking it so personally if our life is not that great. Because that's a different order of reality. That's the body, mind, intellect. So what does this mean? Are we supposed to start fixing our life now? Yes and no. Okay. Now, yes. Why yes? Because suppose that something's not working out. Now, why should I ignore that? Right? Obviously, you're going to attend to that. Suppose a person can't get a job and they get like rejected by every single employee. Are they going to just, oh, okay, it doesn't matter. I'm the self. You know, I'm totally free of this world. No. So they're going to learn some communication skills, you know, get some skills in the world, and then go back and get a job. But at the same time, they don't need to go beyond that, because they just did it for the sake of transactional phenomenal reality, not for trying to become someone extraordinary. So the no answer is because I just need to do what I need to do, but not any further. Okay, quick summary. Ajnani, an ignorant person who has not disassociated from BMI, says this is happening to me. A jnani, a liberated person, this is happening to this body, mind, intellect, which has nothing to do with the self. And that self is referring to the Atman, which is the one and the same truth for all, that pervades all body, mind, intellects. So this also means Jnani's BMI isn't magically free of past crimes, as we said. So how should this translate to reality? Relax, there's no problem. Not so much to be concerned about. Karma belongs only to the ego. This is the reason too. Okay, upon realization, the ego, the ahamkara, is destroyed by self-knowledge. Is the ahamkara really destroyed upon self-knowledge?
No.
Huh? No. Why not? Okay, first you have to define ahamkara, right? What is ahamkara?
Yeah.
2 words.
Digital enjoy.
Yeah, in Sanskrit, please.
Ego.
Starts with K.
Karta.
Karta and B and Bhokta, yeah. Now, if the ego is destroyed, then who is there to, say hello? Who is there to, right? Who is there to then share the knowledge? Because if a Swami or a realized person, whoever it is, if they were so-called they destroy their ego, then who is there to teach, right? Who is there to offer and pass on this lineage for the next person? So the ego does not get destroyed. It is just an impersonal mechanism for the sake of interfacing with the phenomenal world. Our problem is we put the I onto this doer enjoyer, and thus then we think I should do in order for this I who does to enjoy and not suffer. That is our problem. The ahamkara was never meant to be mistaken as the I, but we did it anyway because nobody ever told us that it is not the I. For example, when as little children, we will say, "Hey, mommy, I'm in pain." Oh, okay, well, here's a toy. See what happened? I am in pain. So right from this beginning, we associate the I with the conditions. Where's the pain? Sukshma Sharira, right? In the subtle body. So we associated the I with whatever is going on in the mind. So thus we grow up conditioning this I am this, I am that, I am sore, I am happy, I am joyful. And then 30 years later, we're finding ourselves confused. So this is why it is important to educate our kids and be very careful with our language, because they will have to go through this association also. Okay. Again, it is not there, this ego, it is not there to take the enjoyment or punishment of karma, because the I is no longer giving it reality. Hence, the entire Sanchita file has to be closed with the remark, client deceased, written across it. With the death of the Jeeva, the karma file can be discarded. Okay. Has the Jeeva died?
No.
From the phenomenal world, transactional, vyavaharic world, if the Jeeva is considered to be the BMI complex, then no, they haven't died. But in the case of the Jeeva having been associated with the I, and thus being given reality, in that case we can say with the death of the Jeeva. So we're not talking about physical death, but we're talking about the Jeeva was given reality by the I am who thought it was the Jeeva. But now when there's a disconnection, then in that case it's the death of the Jeeva. When aham brahmanasmi reigns, then aham jivoism has to evacuate the place. The two cannot coexist. So, can you have two thoughts at the same time?
No.
So the condition of a samsari is the continuous thought is I am this either body, this mind, or intellect. All of them. I am the conditions, I am my memories, I am my family, I am so on. And when this is destroyed through self-knowledge, then the constant knowledge is, I am this, I am the self, I am awareness, consciousness. And no longer can we say I'm the body, mind, intellect. So it's through understanding that these two change shape or change their order. Well, actually, the Aham Jiva isn't destroyed completely. These two explanations help us to understand the truth of the Upanishadic statement, Jnanam gives mukti. So, knowledge gives liberation. How is that possible? I just explained. I thought the I meant the body, mind, intellect. Knowledge says, no, that's not true. And let us show you how that is so. And as a result of having heard that knowledge, then we say Jnana gives mukti. And in that way, we are liberated from our karma. This is the true meaning of Jivan Mukti or Moksha, as Gareth was mentioning, or liberation. So again, we'll answer this question. What is liberation? What does it mean to say one is liberated?
Disassociation.
Yeah. I'm no longer what I thought I was. I am free of what I thought I was. I'm always free. That means I am the with Sakshi Bhava of this person who is undergoing this condition of, you know, life, enjoyments and pains and here and there and family and work and so on. I'm not that person. I just happen to be here. Why? As a person? Because last life I was playing with toys. Adrian. Yeah, Adrian, as Adrian was saying. Okay. Again, the BMI doesn't become liberated from karma, but the I. Okay, we're going to correct the statement actually. Does the I become liberated? No. Does the I have anything to do with this? What we're talking about? No. So for whom is liberation for? Is it for the I or is it for the BMI? The BMI. So the way to look at this, I don't want to put the word B cross this out. Just imagine this whiteboard is the substratum called Atman. Okay, it's pure. There's nothing on it. There's a lot of things on it now. There's nothing on it. Now, we put a brain here. Okay. And this brain is called, just so I can remember your name better, Adrian. Okay. And here we have another brain. AA. And we got another, we got Aruna. Okay. There's any more A's here? Agnes. And Agnes. Okay. So we've got three personalities. We got.
Andre.
There's no I here.
Any more A's? Okay, we got Andre. Isn't it funny? Okay. So we've got four different minds, and they're all resting on the one same Atman. So this Atman, the truth of the self, the truth of the universe, is always free no matter what mind is born into it, or at what time, at what place, or at what yuga, or at what condition. So what's the difference between, suppose we have a Mr. Liberated here, and what's the difference between Mr. Liberated and Mr. Unliberated? What's the difference? Now, what can we observe? Both are pervaded by the one same Atman. So Atman had nothing to do with anything from the beginningless beginning to the endless end. But what's the difference? This person has a whole bunch of ideas how I am actually this little brain. But this person also thought that, but then Vedanta came through and it erased that notion. No, that's not true. You're actually the witness because of which both this person this person, and this person get to know about their various conditions of their minds at any moment, in the past, present, and the future. So all that happened was just we removed the... Oh, this is Adrian. Oh, Aruna, sorry, miss. I was looking at Adrian here. So what Vedanta just simply does, it removes this. So Atman remains totally intact and free of everything that we've done as a person. Now, what is the purification of the heart is indicated in the 60th shloka. So this is another benefit of Nirvikalpa. Sanchita karma is washed away by a rain cloud of Dharma. So Sanchita karma is all accumulated karmas in the past, present, and the future. It is washed away by, just imagine a rain cloud, a downpour of rain called Dharma, and it washes away all dirt, all karmic dirt, called Sanchita karma. In other words, the experts in the yoga call this samadhi, the Dharma Megha samadhi. In other words, the rain cloud of Dharma, because it showers the nectar of the self, of the limitless self, in a million ways. Okay. Nectar of the self. What is nectar referring to? Ananda. Or freedom. The substratum. Okay, the abhyasa of samadhi helps in two ways. So how does this help? Let's see. First of all, the purification of the heart, wherein, and the Sanchita karma, okay, we'll just go like this. The purification of Sanchita karma of millions of earlier lives are washed away. So this means obstacles to tattva viveka are removed. This means the mind is purified to inquire the nitya anitya viveka. What is real and what is unreal. That's the first. Because it says abhyasa, practice. So in other words, what does practice do for us? It purifies the mind for the sake of discerning the real from the unreal. And the second is the presence of the pure self is much more self-evident and more frequent. The initial complaint is like this. You know, I get this at times, but at other times I don't get it. It seems like I forget it. But they also say, but it's more evident, you know, it's becoming more clear. I'm getting it little by little. So this frequency of not getting it and getting it slowly starts to, the not getting it reduces and the getting it starts to extend longer and longer. Now, what causes this getting it to be longer and longer?
Nidhyasana.
Huh?
Nidhyasana?
Yeah, nidhyasana, mananam, practice, abhyasa. Now, how do you practice? What specifically do we do when we say practice? Practice what?
Self-inquiry.
Self-inquiry, according to my own self-inquiry, or according to the scriptures? Scriptures. Now, why should I not do my own self-inquiry?
Because you can lead you anywhere.
What I'm going to resort to the past self-inquiry, which has always failed, right? So then what's the point of taking that and then expecting a different result today? That's where the scriptures are important, because they tell us how to self-inquire. What is self-inquiry, please? Okay, break it down. What is the self?
Consciousness.
Yeah,
Awareness.
the truth, absolute truth.
Awareness.
What's inquiry? English word. Just English word.
Asking questions.
That's a common answer, yeah. That's
Investigation.
investigation. How do you investigate?
Observation.
How do you observe?
Realization.
Huh?
Realization.
Inquiry through your senses.
acquiring knowledge through your jnana indriya. And then once we acquire knowledge, then what do we do with that knowledge? How do you investigate? How do you investigate something?
Ask questions, reflect on it.
Yeah.
Ask, is this true?
What advantage is this true?
Yeah. Huh?
Ask, is this true? How is this true? Test it. Try it out.
Okay. Is this all that self-inquiry is?
No.
What else is self-inquiry?
Owning up to.
The application.
Yes, yeah, owning up to, but obviously you inquired. Like you have to know why you're owning up. What makes me safe to do that? So, without it being blind faith. Self-inquiry is also listening, because while you're listening, you're going, right? Interesting. This is like, how does this apply to me? So self-inquiry also includes shravanam, not just asking questions. This is where reading scriptures is in itself self-inquiry. Because often we think self-inquiry is just doing the questions or doing the asking. It is just simply single pointed focus in the lecture, single pointed focus in the lesson. That is self-inquiry also. Any other definitions of self-inquiry? Is it asking who am I and waiting for the answer to come? Yeah. Where did that come from anyway? I used to do that for years. I never got the answer. Oh, the other book was it I am that. I am that. Okay, I am that. Wow, I am that. Nothing came. So self-inquiry is not, it's using your brain completely in every holistic way possible from different angles, pertaining to the knowledge learned in the scriptures. Now, the result of this rain shower of Dharma, what happened, the result is the realization of Sat. What is Sat? Existence, where the fear of death is no more present. Stop there. Why is that the case?
Because awareness, consciousness doesn't die.
Okay, Vivek said existence. Was I not existing before I got this knowledge also? Right? You were also existing before Vedanta. Why were we afraid of death then, and suddenly we're magically not afraid of death if the Sat is truly realized? Okay, what did existence mean for the person before knowledge came? Yeah. And we all know, we all observe that the body, mind, intellect is decaying. Some of us are denying, but it's going to die. So I was existing, but I was existing as a mortal. Now, I discard what is mortal, and I realize that which I am is immortal. Thus, there is no fear of death. It's no more present. So how do you gauge if Vedanta is really working? Because I asked the question, what is self-inquiry? We gave different answers. So now I'm going to say, if you have really self-inquired, what should be the measurable result? How should you feel it? How should you know it? The answer is, the byproduct would be losing fear of death. And I'm not talking about denying how, oh, I'm afraid of death. But when death comes, the person starts chickening out of death. So in other words, that becomes humbling. That becomes a lot more easier to talk about, like a flower or anything else in the world. It's nothing high or low. It's just a normal thought. The second benefit is a realization of chit. What's chit?
Consciousness.
Another name for consciousness?
Awareness.
Yeah. So whenever you hear these two words in Vedanta, they're synonymous. Where there is no doubt about anything. Now, stop there. Why is there no doubt about anything, no matter what it is, if one has truly realized chit, awareness? What's the logic of that? Yeah.
Everything is in awareness.
Yeah, good. Everything is already the truth, which is consciousness itself. So suppose you're looking at a complex topic, and before realization, I was frustrated, or I felt like I'm not smart, right? There's so much to know in this world. So now, after having ascertained or assimilated this knowledge, what should be the byproduct when I'm confronted by the same topic that used to make me feel inferior before? Should I feel superior now? No.
Just unswayed.
Huh?
Unswayed.
Unswayed, unmoved, firm without moving left or right. I am as I am. This is just a topic belonging to the transactional Vyavaharika reality. And even if I do master this, so what? There's always going to be someone who knows a lot more, and I can never master a topic completely. So just let go of trying to be good at anything, because there's just no point. And the moment we stop maintaining a subject, what happens? Memory starts going down. You probably forget in 5 or 10 days. So in that case, there's no about anything. So suppose there's a doubt about what is Satchit Ananda really the truth of all there is? Is that a doubt? Huh? Now where does the doubt occur? Sukshma Sharira. What's the Sukshma Sharira made of? 5 elements. 5 elements are made of 3 gunas. 3 gunas is the home of Maya, and Maya resolves into consciousness. So in other words, everything always goes back to consciousness. So it's a single doubt, just by the analysis of it, it also resolves into the substratum. There is no doubt. I can't write here, I don't know who I am, unless I have a board to write on. So all of this relies on the very substratum, and that substratum is the chit. Furthermore, realization of Ananda, how should that be gauged in real life? Let's see. There is no more dependence for the discovery of satisfaction in God, world, or the body, mind, intellect. So again, no, if I've truly realized the definition of Ananda and living it, then what should be the byproduct? No more dependence on what? On trying to extract satisfaction from a world, even from Ishvara, or the thought of Ishvara, or the personalities of the BMI. Now, why was the person depending on that before realization? Yeah, why were they? What was their reason for trying to extract Ananda from a new car?
Lack of knowledge, lack of ignorance and Advaita.
What do they see in that object?
Happiness.
Freedom.
Yeah, happiness. And they did what? They worked, and why do you work? Why do you do things? To always enjoy later on. So because the person does not know that this object relies on the substratum, which I am, thus then I have no choice but to resort to the words, completely ignoring the substratum. Is that clear? So what's the byproduct of having ascertained Ananda fully? I don't depend on the world for enjoyments. I don't depend on the children, for family, for how long I live, short I live, how healthy or sick a person is. All of that belongs to the Vyavaharika transactional reality. That does not, of course, mean don't take care of the person, the environment. It just means the person doesn't, if a variable changes, it doesn't affect the person so much. That's all we're saying. It will affect the BMI, of course, but there is not so much attachment that it has to work out how I want it to work out. Clear? Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll take a break soon, and then we'll finish chapter 1 of the text. What's next? This thought will be continued a little bit more, expanded. Okay, verse 61. What does Paroksha Dhyanam, indirect knowledge, do for us? Because Samadhi brings what? Purity of the mind. Purity of the mind is Chitta Shuddhi. Now, why do we need a pure mind?
To gain knowledge.
Yeah, to gain knowledge. Direct knowledge or indirect knowledge? At the beginning, always indirect knowledge. because indirect knowledge later on transforms into direct knowledge. Okay, the entire network of desires is fully destroyed, and the accumulated actions known as punya papa are fully rooted out by this samadhi. So what it's saying is all of the karmas are destroyed. This cannot be talking about, again, the yoga definition of nirvikalpa. It has to be thus disassociation from the container of karma, which is the BMI. Okay, one interpretation of this verse said that the entire network of desire is destroyed and the accumulated merits and demerits are fully rooted out. The yoga says the samadhi destroys the root of punyam and papam. So in other words, just pause here. In the yoga world, I'm saying this so you know, because you're going to hear nirvikalpa and savikalpa quite often. The highest peak in the yoga world is to go into nirvikalpa samadhi, right? So the person will then go and practice a lot of sadhana, a lot of dhyanam, asana, pratyahara, pranayama. Okay, all of that will be practiced strongly. And you got to ask now, what's the purpose of attaining nirvikalpa samadhi in yoga? Here answer, samadhi destroys the root of punyam and papam. 5 impurities, likes and dislikes, ego, ignorance, and so on. However, Vedanta does not agree with this statement. Why not? So yoga says you will destroy all of your likes and dislikes in nirvikalpa samadhi. But this is not true. Now, even if yoga is correct, are they correct for next life or just this life?
Just this life.
So have they actually corrected the problem on the absolute? No, only limited to one janma alone. So in this case, even if they are correct, then the point is avidya has still not been destroyed, because the I is still there enjoying, going, well, I'm now pure. I'm now free of likes and dislikes. So in other words, the avidya of the I still has not been dissolved, and thus they have not solved the problem on the long term. So thus it is more accurate to say that some desires are eventually destroyed if one persists in the samadhi. Some desires, not all of them. The samadhi does not require sitting, but can be practiced in daily life. Assuming most of one's worldly karma is complete, and the remaining karma is done with the karma yoga spirit. So again, what it's saying is, here it's negating this word to mean what we often visualize in yoga to mean meditation. First of all, we have to negate that definition, even though it can also mean that. But in the Vedanta context, nirvikalpa requires a practice called nididhyasanam. And nididhyasanam, as we said, is abiding in the scriptures, and also meditation, and also samadhi, if you wish. So it's a total range of sadhana, including karma yoga. And this is especially useful for householders, because in karma yoga, you look at everything as the grace of Ishvara. Everything I'm dealing with here is none other than the truth. So it's always keeping the mind on. So in other words, it's using worldly duties for sadhana. Whereas without karma yoga, how are we going about in this world? Very mechanical, right? I need to do what I need to do. I'm paying the bills. Like, how can I turn that into sadhana? Well, what hand is paying the bills? What's the truth of this hand? Okay, 5 elements. Okay, and then if I look through this, it's just air, it's water, It's soil, right? It's come from the ground. Where does the ground come from? The earth. And then what made the body have this hand? Well, it's the food, and what gave food, the plants, comes from the rain, and then the rain comes from the clouds, and then that water comes from the oceans. And where's the oceans from? Well, the ocean is water, right? The element. And then where's the element come from? Well, that's also three gunas, and then the gunas are the factor which animate this world according to the karma palam that the individual has to undergo. And then that's also has a dissolution in 4.32 billion years when there's a massive dissolution, and then that will come back and there will be another world, more water, the same water that was there in the previous lifetime, in the previous creation. So in other words, this ocean is the same ocean that was there in the previous creation. So in other words, I'm using the same constituents, the same elements that were always there, so nothing has really changed. And then what is this all resolving into? Brahman. And then what is Brahman? Brahman is the truth of the entire universe. It is the self. And then what is the self? I am. And what is the I am? It is my existence, consciousness, bliss that is always is full, complete, and whole, out of a single hand. Right? So that's what karma yoga means. I'm taking something mundane, like children, like feeding, like, you know, even taking the toilet paper, whatever it is, there's always something to inquire into and make an entire story, a narrative about it to support the inquiry. Okay, now, it is not necessary to remove all desires, only those that agitate the mind. Good news, huh? Or compel action and create more desires, compromising your discrimination. So again, we do not have to remove every single desire, only those which are extremely impeding or infringing upon our ability to discriminate the real from the unreal. So suppose there's a desire to constantly play computer games. Okay, you know how it is. Well, actually, I probably don't, because I don't think anyone plays. But once the computer game you start, right, you're just into it. Like 2 hours goes by, and then the person gets hungry, and now they want to eat. And after eating, the last thing you think about is inquiring, because now the mind, the body's tired. And so you think about not taking a nice walk in the park. You know, you meet someone, you speak, and in 2 hours you come back home. And now you're not thinking about inquiry. You probably want another rest, maybe some YouTube videos, entertainment. So one thing leads to the other. So that desire has to be addressed, because if not, it's going to happen tomorrow also. And what happens with humans is we say, no, it's okay. Just one more day. Just one more time, right? But then 10 years later, you're still saying, no, it's okay. Just one more time. You're probably not saying to the same thing, but now it's something else, right? But the point is, this continues. Now, what's the benefit of aparoksha jnana, direct knowledge? So there's a transition, and it says, the earlier obstacles in understanding the meaning of Mahavakya, Tattvamasi, being overcome, the indirect knowledge being gained, the direct immediate self-knowledge takes place as distinctly as a fruit of amala on one's own palm. So we first gain indirect knowledge by listening, shravanam, by the assimilation of that through mananam and nididhyasanam. What happens is direct, immediate knowledge takes place, and then it says, as distinctly as a fruit of amala on one's own palm. Amala is just a fruit. Now imagine holding a fruit in your palm. It's clear, right? I'm holding a fruit. There's no doubt I'm holding a fruit. I'm not holding something other than the fruit. So that doubtless knowledge, and that is metaphorically contacting me, I am holding it, it is mine, I am that. It is that clear, is what's referred to as that direct, immediate knowledge is as though holding a fruit in one's palm. So there's no mistake, I am that. Now it's going to say, why was Paramatma previously unavailable? This is from Katha Upanishad. Like, why was a person previously ignorant of what is so obvious all the time? Although Paramatma, Tattva, that means Atman, is abundantly present as a self-evident I, it is not evident to us because of the lack of sharp and subtle intellect to perceive it. It is only Samadhi Abhyasa that gives us such an instrument that is a subtle and single-pointed buddhi. So again, this is answering, why is a person ignorant of what is so obvious, just like this light in this room that's illuminating these objects? The answer is because they have not exercised the intellect into the subtler aspects of life. Number one, we don't even have to speak about self-knowledge, but this is what it means when, you know, when we speak with a person, usually we have this like tone of conversation. Is it about like what happened yesterday? Here's what this person said. I think Gareth was on the bus listening to such a conversation. Like two ordinary people just speaking about ordinary worldly things. So through the years, it conditions our mind not to go any deeper than the obvious. Like I just need to talk about the weather. That's it. You don't have to talk about like the clouds, right? It's just obvious. So because of that repetition, the buddhi simply doesn't get sharpened. It gets very superficial. And for this reason, it's unqualified to even inquire into a deeper aspect of life, let alone the most subtle element or the principle, which is the consciousness principle. And what gives us this sharpness is abhyasa, number one, which is practice. Practice through the Shastra, through reading, through inquiring, through asking questions, through listening. And single-pointed focus, which means, just an example, you know when you plan a holiday, you want to go somewhere, how does it start? Okay, we have this life and it's everywhere, we're all over the place. And then what happens if when we start to plan for a holiday? We put a thought out there, I want to go. Like it's step one. Still my life's all over the place. And then I sort of talk to it, to my friend or my partner. You know, I'm thinking, you want to go? Okay, let's think about it. So what happens? More and more conversation starts building on to what started off as an initial thought. So after some time, like speaking like this, what are two people doing? They're speaking only what they are focused on, where they're on their holiday. That's all they're speaking of. Tomorrow, how's it going to be? What we're going to do? Where we're going to go? You know, what we're not going to do? What we should do? What we ought to do? You know, what we haven't done, but we should. You know, let's do it. So this is called single-pointed focus. And how do you arrive to that? By talking about it, immersing yourselves into it repetitively. Because remember, when we go somewhere, it did not result from 10-minute conversation. It resulted from constant repetitive talk, constant thinking. Let's go, let's go, let's go. This is what we should do. Let's how we're going to do it. In the same way, Vedanta works like that. Repetition. As a result of that repetition, the doubtless paroksha jnanam then is able to be gotten. We can gain that knowledge. We can process that knowledge. We can chew that knowledge, digest it, and look at it from different angles. And then the consequence from that chewing, processing, the direct knowledge about one's own essential nature becomes as evident and self-revealing as the amalaka fruit on the palm of one's hand. The journey, the statement, let's go on the next holiday, becomes doubtless, certain. There's no doubt. All the arrangements are made. And how do you conclude to go to a journey overseas? How do we come to that conclusion? we start acquiring knowledge where we're going. And not just where we're going, but how we're going to get there. What we're going to do in between. We start visualizing the steps. We even start imagining in our minds. We start even feeling like we're already there. We get self-convinced. We become our own salesman. We convince ourselves why I should do what I ought to do. In the same way, when this knowledge is chewed upon constantly, then over some time, the person becomes convinced that this is true. In other words, when a person becomes convinced, what happens? Their old, prior convinced notions get destroyed. Like when someone sells you something and you finally say yes. Why did you say no a couple of days ago?
Because you didn't know. You didn't know what it was.
Okay, what happened?
Fear of the unknown.
When I say no to the moment I say yes, what happens in between?
You get convinced.
Acquiring knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge. In other words, I get knowledge and I also think about that knowledge. I see, is this true? I start asking questions. How is this true? What others are saying? Let me get a different perspective about it. Let me get a different angle about it. And I keep going. And finally, I'm sold. In the same way, self-knowledge is similar to this. Now, after this knowledge is assimilated and becomes a living reality, then what happens? The worldly problems still continue. However, one does not see them as such. In other words, they're not problems anymore. They're just causes and effects happening exactly how they should, according to their palam. Okay, this paroksha and aparoksha dhyanam, aided by samadhi, leads to two results. This will be mentioned in verse 63 and 64. So now what's going to happen in real life? Like what happens to the person? Now once we go through the benefits, we can then make the statement, and owing to the knowledge which started off at paroksha and then transferred into aparoksha, then we can say freedom is not freedom from problems in samsara, but it is freedom in spite of samsaric problems. That's a perfect metaphor for a liberated person. That's spoken by Paramarthananda. And it's important because often we think that once we gain this knowledge, then we're going to be free from all problems. There's going to be a bag of money that drops from the sky. Everyone's going to love us and everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be happy. These are all imaginations of the mind. So we have to drop these notions and recognize that they still continue, but they don't bother me. Okay, verse 63. Indirect knowledge. So what does indirect knowledge do? It burns all papam because of anadi avidya, beginningless ignorance. We're not talking about direct knowledge, indirect knowledge. The indirect knowledge of Brahman, gained by the study with the acharya, burns completely the sins and merits committed intentionally. Just like the fire burns whatever you throw into it. Okay, so the fire of knowledge we're speaking of, indirect knowledge, what does it do? It burns whatever we have done or whatever sins we have committed before. Why do you think this is? Why does indirect knowledge free us of past sins and past guilt? Why do you think this is not direct knowledge? We're talking about indirect knowledge. Okay, I'll give you a hint. What does indirect knowledge say? You are already free, right? Whatever sins you have gained, you couldn't help it. We were born ignorant. We didn't come with this knowledge. We didn't know any better. No one was intentionally trying to hurt others. No one was intentionally putting problems out into the world. And because we were ignorant and didn't know, nobody taught us, parents didn't teach us, right? The society doesn't tell us directly. We turn on the TV and we get all of the information that doesn't coincide with the harmony of the whole, right? You see always conflicts everywhere. As a child, I'm innocent. As a youth, I'm busy trying to take care of the family. I really don't have time to take care of myself. So I'm just continuing what I learned as a child, but in the child I didn't learn very much except mathematics, science, and geography, but I didn't learn basic Dharma. So I just take that into the life as a grown-up and then continue replicating that. And because of that knowledge, I couldn't help but to make mistakes. I was making mistakes innocently. Because no one likes to make mistakes. Do we like to make mistakes? No. Do we like to hurt others? Then why do we hurt anyway? Why do we still hurt if nobody likes to hurt? Because we didn't get told any better. We weren't trained how to actually conduct ourselves with other people. So owning to this indirect knowledge, now I know, oh my goodness, I couldn't, like, I was as helpless as anyone else. I was like, you know, if I could have done something, I would have. But I didn't choose parents who didn't teach me anything. I didn't choose the environment from the wrong side of the street. I didn't choose an alcoholic mom or dad. I didn't choose a poor education. I didn't choose an education that only taught me about materiality. I didn't choose friends that taught me nothing but how to be something big or someone special in society. Nobody chooses that. But we get born in that environment anyway, whether we like it or not. We get literally put in an environment and we don't even remember while we are there. And then we find ourselves with certain conditions which we actually don't like in ourselves. And we go, where does this come from? I'm not trying to be this, but I still have this condition and I still innocently hurt other people, or I still do something that is not good for the society. So the person is like wondering, my goodness, like, I can't help it. I'm being this unreasonable person that I don't even like, and yet I can't do anything about it. I still keep doing the same thing like yesterday. So when the indirect knowledge comes and says, it's actually not your fault. This is eternal, beginningless ignorance. Whatever is born is ignorant by default. Nobody gets born with knowledge or a manual how to conduct themselves in the world. So one is then eventually freed because they go, wow, then I'm not that, I couldn't help it. If I could have done better, I would have, but I didn't know. So the person is slowly released from their own sins, from their own guilt. Because where does guilt come from? Thinking that I did it, thinking it was my fault. But when indirect knowledge comes and says, your body-mind did it, but the body-mind intellect is just a mechanism according to the past causes, and thus it experiences the effects in the present. So all you're experiencing, Mr. or Mrs., is just effects of the past. But the past, you were not educated. So don't blame yourself if you're experiencing unfavorable results today, because we didn't know in the past. Forgive yourself. That's what indirect knowledge says. And when it says forgive yourself, it just means that have compassion that, if you could have done something, you would have, but you didn't. So for that reason alone, you can let go of this guilt and feeling like a insignificant small person.
So you've got to accept yourself on the BMI and know yourself on the self.
Yeah, at this point it's still indirect. So it's working on the basis of logic still. It's not completely assimilated. But at least the person knows that they are not sinful, right? Because sometimes we come to the sources, you sinned, you should now repent, you should pay for your sins. Well, you're not, because we don't know. Like, we're born ignorant. Now, commentaries. The paroksha jnanam gained through the guru is only word knowledge. Right? It's just like, here's what is, here's the case, here's how the reality works. And it is not still anubhava or direct experience. Okay, now this word, direct experience, again, this is from the Chinmaya school. I will make a little comment here. See, to use the word experience as liberation, what happens? The mind is then flocking to some kind of a projection. Like, I'm experiencing myself as Atman. So thus we will not use this word very often. In fact, I avoid it at all costs. So a small correction here is whenever you see the word direct experience, then another way to look at it is doubtless permanent clarity. So there is no doubt about what? Of the self. Now, why is the word of the self in italics here? There's a reason for that. Because if you say doubtless permanent clarity of the self, what does that imply? That belongs to a subject, right? Of the self. It is an experience of Andre. It is an object of Martin. So this implies there's a subject before the doubtless permanent clarity who belongs to the self. You see that? There's a split there.
Could you not just say doubtless awareness?
So I put that intentionally here to bring that up. When we read the scriptures, we will see a statement like this. And it will sound like there is someone who is prior to who is making the statement. But if I remove the of self, imagine we remove this italics word, what are you going to get? There is doubtless permanent clarity. You stop there, full stop. Now that, if you remove the of self, then we're talking about from the point of view of the realized person. If you put of self, then we're talking about from the point of view of reading about the realized person. You understand? So the reason I put this intention here is so that you can start to see, sometimes you read the scriptures and it will sound like a dualistic statement, right? Or there is, it doesn't sound like the person is. It sounds like someone's having an experience of doubtless permanent clarity. So in this case, you can now start to see, then you go, well, who is it talking about? The actual person whose nature is doubtless permanent clarity. So they don't have to make the statement of the self. You see that? But we make the statement about them and say of the self. Just like no doubt about your body gender. Okay, so that's what direct experience means when we say that word, anubhava. And you're not going to hear that from me very often. I'm just putting it here because it's the commentaries from a different Swami. However, the student is very clear about his or her understanding about the subject. And what does this understanding lead to? All past sins, negligence, and omissions, which are haunting, which are making them guilty, are burnt up as by fire. That's just what I've been saying. That means the person is not guilty because they didn't know any better. Now, only when the apara vidya is, this is an important statement by the Mundaka, I think Mundaka Upanishad. Okay, could be Mundaka. Only when the apara vidya is discarded. What is apara vidya? Knowledge pertaining to apara prakriti. That means of the world. Is there scope for para vidya? What is para vidya? Knowledge pertaining to para prakriti. That means of the truth, of the absolute. Or the supreme knowledge to for the supreme knowledge to dawn. Actually, this is a beautiful statement because In Vedanta, we say there is no skipping. So suppose we skip to Paravidya, we just get the supreme knowledge of the self. Right? Who am I? I am consciousness. I will have Aruna say it. I am consciousness, free of, which is not a product, property, or part of the body, and
It influences the body.
it enlivens the body, and
It's an independent entity.
And it's an independent entity. Is it entity or principle?
The principle.
Principle, okay. So again, we'll repeat now. I am consciousness, which is not a product, property, or part of the body, and it enlivens the body, and it is an independent principle of the body-mind. Okay. So gaining that knowledge without apara vidya, then that knowledge is not going to dawn upon the mind, upon the individual. So what does this mean? If a person skips their emotional issues or their emotional life, then what use is this knowledge that we just said now? If there's still a person that's suffering like a dog, right? Or someone that's in a really bad condition. What's the use? We're going to forget about it. It's like, I don't care about it. I've got a person to address here. I've got psychological issues to address. In that way, we need to address both of them. Now, when you address apara vidya, what do you do then? You discard apara vidya. You see that? So in other words, I first have to master psychology, the person, the Jeeva, and Ishvara, and only after I've mastered that, I can then discard it for the scope of Paravidya to take place. That's what we learn, and then we discard. Why do we learn first? To remove false notions, which will deny stickiness of Paravidya later on. You get that? So Paravidya is like superglue. If you want superglue, first understand Jeeva and Ishvara. And then after doing so, we can then focus on the self, Brahman. The supreme knowledge which is attained by keeping the goal all the time and fully in our vision, without getting lost in the bylanes of pseudo-knowledge, is like the fire which burns up all the past buddhi and papam. That's the effect of the paroksha jnanam. Okay, so indirect knowledge, this is not liberated yet, will burn up all of our guilt of the past. So how do you know that this is working in real life? The person will feel relief about their past. I'm not a bad person, I'm not a good person. I'm just a person who's trying to do the best that I can and be happy. Now, what does aparoksha jnanam give us? What does direct knowledge? This is the knowledge of liberation. Well, let's just say this is a knowledge equivalent to what we call one who is a jivan muktaha. It burns up the sinner, the ahankara. So what do we say in this verse? It burns up the sins. Indirect knowledge burns up the sins. Direct knowledge burns up the sinner. Now, what happens if you burn up the sins? You're going to say then what? Okay, what about the sinner? So if I offload, if I write off all of the sinner's sins off, then it's logical that the sinner is going to still continue creating new sins. So I haven't done anything.
Source is still there. So
Huh?
therefore the products can still...
What?
I said the source is still there.
The troublemaker is still there, yeah.
Is there, so
yeah.
Therefore, there's always potential in the future.
Yeah. Now you remember also the earlier part. We said Vedanta does not agree with a certain aspect of yoga, and yoga said it burns up your likes and dislikes and your papam and your the door. Now we say, okay, that's true, but is that true forever? Right. So in this case, it's not, because it didn't remove ignorance. Because if it did remove ignorance, the person would have a need to continue doing sadhana or to continue doing yoga. Like, what are you trying to achieve if you already are achieved, if you already are attained? Okay, so direct knowledge burns up the sinner. The direct realization of the knowledge of the self obtained from the Guru's teaching of the great Mahavakya is like the scorching sun that dispels the very darkness of avidya, the root of all transmigratory existence. In other words, the transmigratory belongs to the Jivatma, who inherits a new body for the sake of continuing the unfinished business from the Purva Janma, from the past life. And it burns up that Jivatma. It actually doesn't burn up Jivatma in this life, it just guarantees there's no rebirth in the next life. When the student has thus decided and gained Paroksha Jnanam under the guidance of a teacher, and thereafter he is further or she is further guided by Brahmanishta Purusha, that means one who is firmly established in Brahman, as Brahman, then the Aparoksha Jnanam takes place. So step 1, Paroksha Jnanam through the guidance of a teacher and Shastra. Step 2, Mananam Nidithyasanam, result Aparoksha Jnanam. Thus he attains direct, here we go again, direct experience. Can you see that word? You're going to attain direct experience of yourself. So we're going to make another correction. And we'll say anubhuti, the word anubhuti, which is a common word, like aparoksha anubhuti. You heard that before? Knowledge other than this. What does that mean? Knowledge other than this. You mean this? No. Knowledge other than that too. How about that? No. Knowledge other than that too. Knowledge of this? No. Other than this also. Okay, I got it. Knowledge of that? No. Other than that also. Okay, I'll come back in 10 years when I really crack the code. No. Also not of that. Knowledge other than this. What is this talking about? Na iti, na iti. Okay, the Paroksha Jnana was able to destroy the punya and papa. So that's what indirect knowledge does. But Aparoksha Jnana destroys the root cause of the samsara of repeated births and deaths. In other words, retranslating, if only Paroksha Jnanam takes place, then what is the person going to enjoy? Yes, there will be an enjoyer for sure. They're going to enjoy absence of punya and papa. They're going to have a really smooth life, actually. They're going to have a life that is extremely quiet and solitude and successful. However, when they're born in the next life, then they're going to have to restart that process again. So in order to solve that problem, guaranteeing a new life, then we convert that into Aparoksha Jnanam through Mananam and Nidithyasanam. Okay, the individuality, that means the person who you think you are, is born out of tamaguna or ignorance. Just as the sun of the high moon, of the high noon, is so bright that there is no possibility of darkness, the Aparoksha Jnanam takes care of the ignorance because of which one constantly considers oneself to be the individual conditioned by the 5 koshas. So aparoksha jnanam destroys that knowledge, or in other words, that false knowledge that I am one of these 5 sheets. In this way, tattva viveka takes place. What is tattva viveka? What does the word tattva mean? Reality viveka. In other words, I can thus then, having gained aparoksha jnanam, constantly, unceasingly, there is background spontaneous discernment between real and the unreal. I'm not saying there is conscious, because conscious discernment belongs where? Paroksha jnanam. After having done that through single pointed focus, what happens? Unceasing knowledge what is real and what is not real. Thus, in this way, tattva viveka takes place. Why? Because what is unreal? Anything belonging to the panchakosha, the 5 sheets, and whatever knowledge those 5 sheets happen to be interfacing with, like the world. And what happens to be real? Yeah, that which was present in the past, present, and the future, which was always true and continues to be true, which is the self. Okay, now finally the summary of the whole text, and we're done. In this way, by distinguishing the self by the process shown in the scriptures, that's sadhana 1, in accord with scriptural injunctions, getting the mind to be absorbed upon it, that's sadhana 2, the bondage of samsara comes to an end. That's the result of sadhana 1 and 2. And the supreme bliss is attained by the man or woman without any delay. That's the result of sadhana 1, 2, and the preceding number 3. Okay, now let's see what we read so far from the beginning of the book. Verse 3 to 10, the essence of Vedanta. Identity of the individual self, consciousness, awareness, Atman, and the self in everything is established. That is the Jeeva Paramatma Aikyam. That means the truth of I and the truth of the universe and the truth of everything is one and the same. The self, Atman, is existence, consciousness, limitlessness. Satchit Ananda, and is revealed in our daily experience, life in general. Here we can't say the word experience. Now, how is it revealed every single moment? Answer: experience. Like when I say experience, what am I talking about? Are you having an experience right now of sitting down in the class? Yeah. Experience means everything. From the moment we're waking to the moment we go to sleep, it's just experience. So what is experience, you ask? It is a mixture of consciousness and thought. Where does thought belong? Panchakosha, one of the 5 sheets. Or the experience of the world is known through the 5 sheets. So what is experience? Formula: consciousness plus thought. And where does thought occur? Sukshma Sharira. When you're in deep sleep and there is no thought, is there experience? No. And what is experience? Consciousness plus thought. When we wake up, what happens? The Panchakosha is fully operational. There are inputs observed through the Karma Indriya and through the Jnana Indriya entering the body. And then that transfers into a thought, like a thought of remote control. And thus we say, I am experiencing a remote control. Is there experience in coma? Is there mind in coma? Yes?
Well, you remember some bits later. You remember that you had that experience.
Yeah, but is their mind in a coma during a coma?
No.
No. So we always think it from the present, the actual presence. Okay, so in a coma, thus we go into a coma and we say, have you began the operation? Yes, we've done it, sir. It was 8 hours. Oh my goodness, I didn't feel like it even began. In other words, there was no mind, and therefore there was no experience of the surgery. What is experience? Consciousness plus thought. Now it says, thoughts vary, but consciousness does not vary. Differences belong to thoughts, not to consciousness. Plurality belongs to thoughts, not to consciousness. This is a fact at all times and places and in every state of mind. This is the truth from the moment we're born to the moment we die. And this consciousness is called chit. And how is chit described? It is that because of which I know that I know. But the first I know is not verbalized. Okay, I know, see, we usually say, I'm cheerful. But what didn't we verbalize? I know that I am cheerful. So the first I always validates the second I know. That's what Ramana calls the I. The preceding I is the validator of the latter I. Existence, eternity is called Sat. Eternity is freedom from mortality. So when we say I want to be immortal, what are we saying? I want other than, or I want, so suppose Martin says, I want to be eternally awake. What is he saying? I want to stay awake forever, right? So eternity is freedom from sleeping, from mortality. Mortality means change. For example, Martin was sleeping, now he's not sleeping. So therefore there is a change there. But Martin knows he was sleeping, right? While he was sleeping. And he knows now he's awake. So that is the chit, consciousness. Freedom from change is called Ananda, which is beginningless, which is unlimited and beginningless. It is forever. The self is Sat Chit Ananda. Jivatma, okay, now here's the important. Jivatma minus the thoughts, that means the Sukshma Sharira, is called Brahman. What is Jivatma? Please define Jivatma.
Consciousness minus thoughts.
No, without consciousness. Yeah, you're right, but what is Jivatma itself without the consciousness part?
Jeeva, who's aware of his body mind, is aware of his self.
Any more definitions of Jivatma?
A Jeeva that knows, a person who knows he's not the body, mind, intellect, or has knowledge of.
I mean, yeah, they're all right, but it's a different context. When we say Jivatma, then what we're talking about is the transmigrating agent. The transmigrating agent which inherits new bodies. Now, what inherits new bodies? Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. So therefore, when we say Jivatma, what should be on your mind? Means Sukshma Sharira and Karana Sharira. And in order to express what is in the Karana Sharira, the causal body, I then need a physical body to do so. Can you express a thought without a physical body?
No.
No. So, if there is cause, if there is impressions, then automatically you are privileged to a physical body. Thus, we have three bodies. Okay, so causal body. What is causal body, Agnes? When I say causal body, what comes to your mind? Just use the word causal, like cause, something that causes. What does that mean? Something that causes, right? But causes what?
Karma.
What does it cause, Agnes? Okay, no, it's okay. Okay, it's like this. Causal body equals karma. What is karma?
Cause and effect.
Okay, good. It's even better. I will say action. So cause and effect. So what? So effect is what? Right now I'm moving my hands. Are you speaking to me? It's all an effect. But what's causing it?
Action.
Huh?
Action.
Yeah, okay, but what's causing Agnes to shake her head or to go, I don't know, right? What's causing her to do that in the way that she's doing that? Why is she being Agnes and not someone else? Because it's a very specific person that we're addressing. What makes a person very specific?
The karma.
Their causal body.
Their causal body, good. But now, then what has to be in the causal body for them to be the person that they are?
Thoughts.
Body, mind, intellect.
No, what? Huh?
Past action.
Past actions, which generate what?
Karma.
Vasanas.
Vasanas, which means also, what's vasana? Explain.
Tendencies.
I think, no, what's vasana?
Vasanas in the causal body. So therefore you have certain tendencies that make you who you are.
Yeah, impressions or habitual notions, habitual ways of doing things. So what is causal body? That which stores or contains those impressions which make me as a person. Okay, so the causal body thus needs a mind, a sukshma sharira, to convert those impressions into a thought. That's how it all starts. A moment ago, there was nothing. Suddenly an idea comes, right, out of nowhere. And then it goes, oh, I need to do this. I need to sing. Now, where was that unmanifest thought before? Where did that come from? Past impressions. Now, why is it suddenly available to you? Why is it known to you? Because it's converted into a thought. Where is the thought? In the sukshma sharira. What does sukshma sharira mean? Subtle body, which consists of what? Mind.
And intellect.
What's mind? Manas, buddhi. What else? Chitta. So what happens is when we get an impression, like I need to do something, then out of nowhere suddenly go, oh, this is my new task. This is what I need to do. So why are you saying that? You're saying that because the unmanifest, which is in the causal body, converted it into a physical thought, into something that is known, and that thought thus has an emotion associated with it also, does it not? There's always an emotion associated with every thought. Now where does this emotion belong to? Sukshma sharira. Or there is a memory. The memory also helps to link. Well, what does this mean? Like I have a thought of, doing something, but what does it mean to go to this country? And then you have to take some memory references of what this country actually is, right? You need some from what you learned in school. And then the intellect looks at that information, that emotion and that memory, and it goes, okay, so what does this mean? What do I need to do based on what is being presented to me? And then it makes a decision, and then based on a decision, you then express it how? Through your karma indriya. What's karma indriya, please? Organs of action, for example, through your speech, and you verbalize it to a friend, or you use gestures to express it. So in other words, what's karma indriya? Your physical body. So therefore, we started off with a causal body, something that is totally beyond your awareness, because you don't know when you will do what you're about to do. Right? You never know. You never know when you're gonna when we go to an environment and we get triggered. Something happens and we get triggered. We didn't know that's gonna happen. So that's causal body sending a thought into the subtle body, and the subtle body converts that into a physical expression, and then we act it out. So here it says the Jivatma which is the Sukshma and Karana Sharira, minus the thoughts, is called Brahman. So everything I just said, like this whole process of these three bodies, you remove all of that. And what do you get? The substratum. You get consciousness, Paramatma. The identity is the essence of Vedanta, this identity. So the truth of you is Brahman and not the Sukshma Sharira. Why? What's the logic for that? Why are you not your Sukshma Sharira? Why are you not your mind? Provide me some logic for that.
Because it's Mithya.
Okay, but that's... okay, logic. I need something concrete. I'm not sure. You're not your mind. Okay, great. I got that. It's Mithya. But why? What's the logic for that?
Because you're there to witness every impression and change. And
I see. A lot more concrete. Okay. Now, why am I asking these questions? What do we say at the beginning? I said the question, what is self-inquiry? The answer is thinking about the questions that are presented through the process of listening, but also through asking your own questions. That's why I'm asking these questions, because this is the heart of self-inquiry. Now, finally, commentaries. Based on the two sadhanas that are prescribed. Tattva, that means the reality, is the self or Satchidananda Brahman. That is the essential truth that is being sought. This truth is distinguished from either the three shariras, the three bodies, or the five sheets that we just described now. Both refer to the upadhis through which the truth is reflected. Okay? Another important statement. So what it's saying is the three shariras, we're going to finish in 5 minutes. And the 5 koshas are upadhis. Now you're going to say, what is an upadhi? Right? Think of it this way. When I present you I have a red rose, or we'll take Agnes's hair, and we're going to have like a bottle, a white bottle, right? A clear bottle. And I put it in front of Agnes's hair. Now, is the bottle clear or is it red? Huh?
The bottle's still white, it's still clear.
Yeah, but from the angle that is being witnessed, like in the moment.
The appearance
is red.
Yeah. So it's actually, so it's red. So what's happening here? Agnes's hair is so kindly borrowing the attributes of redness, and it's as though making this clear bottle that attribute of red. Thus I say what? This bottle is red. But is it actually red? No. So Agnes's hair is thus upadhi, which lends its attributes or its existence onto the object which is essentially pure. And the object which is pure is then called upahita. And what is upahita? That one which as though takes on the attributes of something else. Okay, there are 2 important words. What is upadhi? Please explain.
The one which lends the attributes.
Yeah, and upahita?
The one which takes on the attributes.
Okay, good. And which one is the real one in this case? Is it upadhi or is it upahita? Okay. Now, how does this now relate to the 3 bodies and 3 shariras? Explain. 3 bodies and the 5 koshas. What's the 3 bodies and the 5 koshas? Is that upadhi or upahita?
Upadhi.
Yeah. So let's convert the statement into real life. So the 3 bodies, which consist of emotions, thoughts, memories, experiences, environment, and so on, it as though lends its attributes of the physical, the mental, the emotional onto that which it lends its existence to. And what does it lend its existence to? What is essentially pure. What allows it to lend its existence. If it wasn't clear, how could you constantly tell one part from another? How could you say green, red, blue if that which is the substratum was not free of green, red, and blue. You understand? So it's like you're having a black, like a red wall. Then how could you show the color red if the wall is red? In other words, the wall has to be other than the attributes that are presented onto it for those attributes to be validated truthfully as to what they actually are. Okay? Now, how do you distinguish these two upadhis? How to distinguish upadhi and upahita? The process of distinguishing the truth in this particular text is called Anvaya Vyatireka. That should not be foreign. We heard this word. That is the examining the presence of or the absence of various factors and seeing which is continuous and which drops off. What does this mean? I'm seeing what is here constant and what is constantly in a state of modification or alteration or variance. Give an example of this. How do you perform this sadhana? Seeing what is true, what is always true, and what is falsifiable. That's called mithya. How do you do this? We use the example of the three states. So we ask, what is true now?
I'm aware.
I am, right? I exist. I am. I'm aware. What is true in a dream? Easy, right? You know, you constantly report your dreams, like I had a good dream or a bad dream. So I am there. I'm still in the dream. I'm present. I am. What is true in deep sleep? Now, pause there. Just the fact that I said the word deep sleep means what?
You were there.
I have to then know about deep sleep to say deep sleep. Otherwise, you'll be like, sorry, Andrea, what's deep sleep? I don't know what that is. So in other words, whenever there is a word for something, it always implies it exists. Whether we analyze its existence or not, the point is we still have a word which describes what already is true. And what is true? Deep sleep. But the fact that I can say and invent a word for deep sleep and you relate to that means that the I am must have then also been available in deep sleep. And then what's true again when we wake up? I am. Who says I slept? Who remembers there was sleeping? Who knows there was nothing? Who identifies there was darkness? Now, in the dream state, is your physical body present? From the dream state, not from the waking state. No. So in other words, if something is not present then, but it's present now, then it cannot thus be real. So then we discard that. In the dream state, is your in the waking state, in the deep sleep state, like when you're sleeping deeply, is there physical body and your subtle body? No. In other words, we also discard the subtle body as also not true. Because what does the word true mean? It has to be constantly present. If it's falsifiable, then it cannot be true. Because it means by changing its circumstances, then its trueness is no longer true. Thus, it cannot be true. So what does true mean? It has to be true now, 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 now. Whenever you think about it, it's always true. Think about it 20 years ago. It's true then. Think about it now. True now. Think about it in the future. It's still, well, from the point of the future, it's still going to be true. And what are we talking about? That which is aware of the past, present, and future. So this is what this sadhana is. Next. Absorption in the self. Through the three-stage process, Shravanam, Mananam, and Nididhyasanam, this is what leads to samadhi. And we talked about samadhi where there is a person who is trying to do the sadhana, who's trying to focus on the self. Okay? So there's two. There's a split there. There's a person and there is a self. There's a subject and there's an object. So there's still a split there. And that's called Savikalpa Samadhi. Now, Nirvikalpa is when this division is removed owing to self-knowledge, which says that the very person who is doing the objectification of the self is actually the self, because that person is borrowing awareness, and that person actually is the awareness, because of which this objectification gets to be validated. Clear? Okay. And number 3, what is accomplished by this? Liberation from samsara. Which means, while living, it means the person has nothing to gain nor lose. That's what liberation from samsara means. It does not mean that problems don't come. It just means that I'm not pulled to go to another music festival or some kind of an interesting, entertaining event. Because, it's gonna, there's nothing in it for me to make me happy nor unhappy. So what's the point of going? And 4, moksha. From the absolute standpoint, the achievement is described in a positive way as being the attainment of supreme truth. This happens simultaneously without any delay. Yeah. Okay, we'll just take the words without any delay. There's a little bit of a tricky part here in the sentence.
Spontaneous.
Yeah, the word achievement I don't want to use. Okay, let's just take without any delay. Do you ever had a time where something's on the tip of your fingers? Right? You're like, I know it. I remember. I know it's right there. It's so close. Remember that time? Mm-hmm. You know it's on the tip of your fingers. You know it's there. Tip of your tongue. Did I say tip of your fingers? Yeah. You know it's there, but you don't know exactly what it is. Yeah. So you're so close to it. Now, when it finally reveals itself, does it come like gradually? Or it's like in the moment it's instant? Instant. And when it's instant, it's also what? It's also complete. And is there any doubt when it comes? Do you go, oh, maybe? No, not at all. So it's doubtless, it is full, whole, and complete, and it is instant. Now, how do you get a promotion at a job? You'll get a higher position. Does that come because somebody likes you? Or does that become a lot of work prior?
Both.
Huh? A lot of prior work. So in other words, you work much harder than most. And when you have, then what happens? You instantly gain the reward, the wholeness in that moment. You don't get like a quarter of the reward. You get the full trophy. And for this, and then we have finally now concluded the first verse of Panchadashi and the first chapter. And the chapter in itself is a text of its own. So we have now finished Panchadashi, chapter 1. And next year, I will first think if I should do this to chapter 2 or go to a simpler text, which will also help, like Tattva Bodha. I'm still thinking. That's going to reveal, it's going to lay out things a little bit clearer as to what is what in Vedanta. So I'll still think about that. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you.